This is Claim Your Potential, the Empowerment Podcast. I'm Sofie Lindberg, your host and the Executive Director of Claim Your Potential. Get ready to embark on a transformative journey where we empower women and girls to unlock their full potential in every aspect of life. It's time to claim your potential and step into a life of empowerment. Tune in every Tuesday as we ignite your inner strength, provide actionable insights, and empower you to achieve greatness. So, are you ready to claim your potential? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Claim Your Potential, the Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Sofie, and in this episode, we are joined by special guest, Therese Nicklas, to discuss how to start building wealth. Therese Nicklas is a certified financial planner, certified money coach, and certified success principles coach, specializing in empowering executive women facing crossroads to build a big, bold life with certainty and confidence. Her passion is inspiring women to design a fulfilled, intentional life and achieve true wealth and financial freedom by focusing on what truly matters with her motto, live your life by design, not by default. Please welcome Therese Nicklas. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you on, and I love starting episodes hearing a little bit about your journey and what led you to where you are. So, what led you to pursue a career as a financial empowerment expert and wealth coach?
Well, that's an interesting question, Sophie. I kind of fell into it. I have been in financial services my entire career, and a little more than probably close to 25 years ago, I was approached by a colleague who told me about financial planning, and I had never heard of it. So I looked into it, and one thing led to another, and the next thing I knew, I was licensed to sell financial planning type products. And as I progressed in the industry, there was something that turned me off, and that was most companies that offered financial planning were insurance companies. And the reason that they offered the plan was as a way to sell insurance. And I felt like that was really disingenuous. So over the years, I've developed my own process, which includes financial planning, but it incorporates life coaching beside it, because I found that when I'm working with people, if I can give them more of a life foundation, like understanding what's important to them, understanding their purpose, that inspires them to take the action to build wealth in a way that is more intentional. It's not just for, filling up a big bucket with money, but it's really understanding what the money is for. And by doing that, I find that they create that big, bold life that they're dreaming about.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like your motto, live your life by design, not by default, really ties in there. And so I'm curious as to how do you apply that model to women, aligning their financial aspirations and personal values?
Well, we start by helping them discover their purpose. I find that a lot of women, especially very busy executive women that might be running a family, the folks that I work with tend to be in the Gen X range that are like, between 40 and late 50s, early 60s. And often they're not only trying to balance their career and create some sort of work-life balance, but they're also taking care of an elderly parent, or they just have a lot of different things going on in their life. And they feel like they just jump on the hamster wheel, run like crazy, then jump off at the end of the day exhausted. And I think that with COVID, it triggered a lot for a lot of people. I know it triggered a lot of things inside of me, which made me personally question, is that all there is to life? And as I went through my own personal thought process with that, I found that other folks were on the same page. So by taking life coaching, helping them understand what's really important to them, and then creating the means so they can have a life of meaning, just brought them so much more happiness. And I think at the end of the day, Sophie, what we're all really looking for is to feel happy. And for some of us, they think, oh, if we had more money, we'll be happy. If we had this, we'll be happy. When we go inside, when we go within, we learn that none of those external things will make us happy. The thing that really brings us joy is knowing why we were put on earth.
Yes, and thank you for sharing that there because I absolutely agree with you that there's so many people that I see that go for what they think that they need in life to make them happy, whether it's, the fancy car or the fancy house or, having that giant stack of cash all the time. And when it all comes down to it, they're not happy
Right.
because they perhaps don't have that purpose figured out yet. And so I think, and you might agree with me on this, I think money, great, yay, we all need it to live. But at the same time, we want to be able to, yes, have that financial security, but be able to connect it to what we want to do as a person in this life that gives us meaning and purpose. And so I think that's so powerful to share there.
Well, I think, Sophie, if you've ever spoken with anyone who knows that they have like 6 months or less to live, they're not going to tell you that they need to spend more time in the office or that they need to, make one more big deal. They're going to tell you that they want to leave deep footprints in the sand before they leave this earth. And there's nothing wrong with chasing a dream, and there's nothing wrong with, making a good living and all of that. But you don't want that to be the end all be all. Connecting the means, which is the money, to a sense of meaning is what's going to make you happy. When you have that connection and you know that you are striving towards something, that's what gives you that sense of purpose and fulfillment. And when you have that, that's when you're happy. And I don't know what the number is. I don't know what the magic number is for everyone because everybody is different. And it really depends on the impact that you want to leave. But once you have that personal connection between your means and a life of meaning, that's when you begin to feel fulfilled.
Yeah, and going back to that means, and we've mentioned mindset a little bit here, and I know that addressing that money mindset is something that is so key to be able to truly get there when it comes to that financial freedom. And so, what advice do you have for our listeners to really improve their money mindset, allowing them to break free of those limiting beliefs and embrace a more abundant outlook on wealth?
Well, the first step is gratitude. Developing an attitude of gratitude is the key to all of that. When you are grateful for what you do have and you focus on what you have rather than what you don't have, that shifts your whole mindset around money. That one step, that one thing will make a dramatic transformational shift in your mindset around money because that's when you realize that we live in an abundant world. There's plenty for everybody. It doesn't make any difference if your next door neighbor has more than you. You just look the other way and you'll find somebody that has less than you. And none of that matters. What matters is what are you doing with what you have between time, money, and all the other life resources.
Yeah, I could not agree more there. I think, oh my goodness, for sure, gratitude plays such a large role in everything we do. And especially when it comes to creating that wealth, right? Being thankful and understanding of here's how far I've come already. I'm so thankful for what I have. I'm so thankful for, the wealth I've already created. And, I'm so thankful for the people that I have in my life to share that wealth with. So absolutely gratitude plays such a large role there. And before I jump into more of the wealth specific questions, I really want to make sure that we are understanding some of the misconceptions and myths first. And so, in your experience, what are some misconceptions or myths about building wealth, and how do you help your clients see past these barriers to unlock their full financial potential?
Well, I think one of the myths is that people think that building wealth is all about a number, and it isn't. So when we go back to even the gratitude conversation, you think of any day in your life, Sophie, when you got out of bed and you bumped your toe and you just felt like, oh my God, this is going to be a crappy day. We all have those days. But if you can hit pause and think about something positive, think about, well, hey, I get to put my 2 feet on the ground. That's not so bad. Or you just start thinking about something that you're grateful for, something that you do have. It changes your whole attitude. It changes your whole how you show up. And it's the same thing when it comes to money. If you can shift your thought process around the number, like looking at, how much you have, to being grateful for what you have, that alone will make a huge difference for you. That will transform the myth that I'm only wealthy if I hit a certain target, because that's not what wealth is all about.
Yes, I love that comment there on it's not about the number. I think that's probably the biggest misconception that I've heard everywhere when you read anything on retirement, anything on building your investment profile, all of that for some reason gets attached to that idea of building wealth. And so when especially young women read that, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to have, this big hefty number in order to call myself successful, in order to call myself wealthy, even though I might have this great life and people that love me and a good job, but I just need to have that big number to get there.
Exactly. And yeah, we don't need a big number. It's not what you have, it's what you do with what you have. And that's what defines wealth for you. So Emerson, probably more than 100 years ago, wrote a great poem, and it's called, I know the first line of it. I might not have the correct title, but it starts off with, "That man is a success who," and like dot, dot, dot. And then it goes and gives a few examples. And it's somebody who appreciates nature, makes the world a better place. It goes on with this whole list of things a person does, and that makes them successful. And I think that's a good thing for people to read, especially if they have that tendency to focus on a number or measure themselves against someone else. Go back and read that. Go back and look at that and say, what have I done to make the world a better place? What have I done to put a smile on someone's face?
Yes. And for listeners that are listening right now that are feeling a bit overwhelmed just by this conversation or the idea of building wealth, because it can feel like such a daunting concept for so many. As a financial empowerment expert, how do you simplify the process and guide your clients towards achieving their financial goals with confidence?
Well, we start with the exercises that I've just mentioned. So, helping them shift that mindset away from just focusing on numbers. That's step number one. And then what we do going forward is we do have to obviously look at the numbers. So I look at, what is it that you actually bring home? A lot of people don't know that number. A lot of people are really not aware of what their actual paycheck looks like. They don't pay attention to it. So helping them pay attention to that bottom line, your net, say your net monthly income, and then understanding that number against what you're actually spending. And if any adjustments have to be made, we point those out. Having a surplus, building a savings account, having an emergency fund, those are all the basics, that basic foundation to building wealth. Because if you're always stressed about paying your bills or wondering if you're going to be able to pay your bills, you're never going to be able to get it. It's going to be very difficult to get out of that cycle. So helping them shift from there to understanding what they actually have to work with, making whatever adjustments they need to make so that they can have a surplus and start building a savings account, whether it's an investment account or just your emergency fund. When you have that cushion, it's almost like seeds to a money tree. It's really amazing that when you get out of that mindset of paycheck to paycheck, because that again is a habit, and it's something that you've told yourself that you live paycheck to paycheck, and that becomes your reality. When you can see that you don't live paycheck to paycheck, because even if you're saving $10 a week, then you're not living paycheck to paycheck, because you do have a surplus. Might not be very big, but it's the principle. It's the habit of building that savings. And that's where we begin, is having that understanding of cash flow, knowing that as you improve your cash flow, then you improve your net worth. And what I see with a lot of folks is when the net worth gets improved, their self-worth gets improved.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm thinking back to all of the financial advice I was ever given, and one of the biggest ones was always to have that back pocket, that little bit of cushion, that emergency fund. And yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of the time we see it as, oh, it has to be this big number. And as you said, if you're not there yet, that's okay. It's, about building that habit and getting into the habit of putting a little bit aside each month, even if it is, as you said, $10, $15 a month. It's still that habit of, okay, I'm not fully living paycheck to paycheck. And each month, let's say I'm going to increase that amount that I set aside by another $10, $20, and it's building up from there. And so absolutely, I think that's something that I find very helpful, having that small step. It's more actionable than when I hear financial advisors say, "Oh my gosh, you need to have, right off the bat for your emergency fund, 6 months of your living expenses set aside," which I think is great. I think that's, they're trying to make you as financially secure as possible. But at the same time, as you said, that's not feasible for everyone to have that 6 months set aside already. It's just in the process of building that habit.
Right, and it all comes down to the habits because you're either in the habit of living paycheck to paycheck or you're not. And the way that if you are in that habit and you can tell that you're in that habit, would you like to know a tip on how to know if you're in that habit?
Absolutely.
So if you get a raise, let's say you get a raise of like, I don't know, what's an average raise? About 3%, say, for example. And if you see that that 3% is not going into a savings account, whether it's your retirement account or basic savings, then you know that you're living paycheck to paycheck. Because anytime you get an increase in income, you ratchet up your lifestyle. And you're probably ratcheting it up in ways that you don't even notice. Like it isn't like you took that money and you set it aside because you have a dream vacation that you want to take, or you want to replace your car or do something that's tangible. But if you're, oh, now I can, instead of going out for lunch 3 times a week, I'm going to go out for lunch 5 times a week. Or when I go out for lunch, it's going to be $20 instead of $10. If you're doing those kinds of things, you're living paycheck to paycheck. And that is a habit that you have to break. And I have seen people living on what I would call a pittance. And I don't mean to sound judgmental, I'm not. But when I look at their expenses and what they have for income, and I see that they can still save money, I know that if you really want to do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah, and I will definitely admit I have done that a few times where I got a little bit more than I was expecting one month, and rather than putting it away in savings, I said pretty much the same thing. I was like, "Oh, I can go out to dinner 3 extra times this month, and no, I'm not gonna go to the less expensive restaurants. I think I can afford to go eat some really nice sushi." And that was definitely a big mistake, and looking back on it now, such a big mistake because it got me into that habit of when I got extra amounts of money, when I got that surplus, rather than putting it aside to save for vacation or putting aside in case, I lost my job, I was immediately going out and spending it on something that was a momentary piece of what I thought was happiness. So, definitely something that I think so many of our listeners, especially our younger women listening to this podcast, can truly take away. And tying that in there, I feel like many people really do struggle with balancing those immediate financial needs with those long term goals. And so, do you have any other strategies that you would recommend for really striking this balance and ensuring a secure financial future?
Yes. First, I'd like to recommend a book that I read recently that I found super helpful, and it's like something you can read in a couple of evenings. The name of the book is Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg, Fogg. Get any commission or anything for recommending the book. I actually got it out of the library, but it's a great, very, very simple, easy to digest book that shows you how to build important habits in a really small way. And the way that you do that is you tie one habit to something that you're already doing. Like, after I brush my teeth, I will meditate for 5 minutes. Or after I do what I already am doing, I will do something else. So, like, after I get my paycheck, I will put $100 in my savings account. Doing things like that will help you build. So, just forming those little habits. But to answer your question a little clearer, understanding that long term goals take a long time to build, not beating yourself up over, oh, I don't have that 6 month savings account now, but getting in the habit of just chipping away at things and very, slowly and methodically, and like having a system for how you're saving, put it on autopilot. That will really help you build your wealth. If you're not thinking about it and having to physically do something to make it happen, if you have money taken out of your paycheck going into a savings account, for example, before you know it, you're building up an account. I can give you an example of one client that I started working with, and she had nothing saved. I mean, nothing. I mean, she was in negative numbers and she was making a pretty good income. She was one of those people who came to me and said, I have no idea where my money goes. I said, well, we've got to find out where your money goes. So we, created a spreadsheet and we looked at everything that she was spending and I had her track it for 30 days. And she was appalled when she saw how much money she was spending on fast food, like, picking up a pizza on the way home from work, or because, she was tired, she didn't feel like cooking. But when she looked at what that added up to at the end of the month, she was shocked. So I think one step is awareness, creating a way for you to be aware and don't stick your head in the sand. Just be aware of where your money is going so you can make better decisions. Once she did that, and I encouraged her to have a certain amount of money taken out of her check to go into her retirement account, it didn't take her long to amass 6 figures in that retirement account. And she was like, how did this happen so fast? I said, because you weren't thinking about it. You weren't withdrawing. It was just sticking the money away and set it and forget it.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. I was listening to that and I was thinking back to my own experiences with trying to just build up that savings because I feel like I was definitely in a similar position where it was I had absolutely nothing saved. And then I remember this one month I had worked a lot less hours because I was being paid hourly at that time. And I had been sick and then I went on vacation and then came back to realize, oh my gosh, my monthly income just got cut in half.
Mhm.
Uh-oh, I don't have anything saved. Uh-oh, where do I go from here?
Right. And when you think about that experience, Sophie, when you think about yourself in that moment
Mhm.
and you knew you had to make a change, whether it was to change your career, get a new job, or whatever. Let's say you're in that moment and you're realizing, I can't go on like this. I need a new job. How do you think you show up at that job interview? How do you think you show up looking for a job when you're in that mindset?
Oh my gosh, so stressed. It's all connected. It's because you need that job, and so you're just kind of like, "Oh my gosh, I have to get this. I have to get this. If I don't get this, then I'm gonna go into credit card debt, and then, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm gonna do." So I would imagine that you're showing up to work, not your best self.
Exactly. And you spiral. And how attractive is that to a future employer?
Oh, not at all.
Right. So not only does having your finances in a good place help you for obvious reasons, but there are some intangible benefits because you show up differently. When you need to get that better job, you don't feel like, oh my God, if I'm out of work for a week or two, I'm cooked. No, you've got that backup plan. You show up differently in all aspects of your life.
Absolutely. And I'd love to connect everything together for our listeners here and ask what is one thing that our listeners should take away from this conversation?
Well, one thing is if you've been struggling to do this on your own and you have failed or you don't feel like you've succeeded, don't be afraid to ask for help. You will be amazed, even if you hired someone, whether it was me or somebody like me, and you think, wow, I've got to pay them, a certain amount of money. That can save you money in so many ways in the long term. You've got to see the big picture when you're looking for help.
Yes, most definitely. Reach out to someone. I've also found that sometimes reaching out to parents can help just because they are able to give you some of what worked for them, what didn't work for them. So, for our younger audience out there, if you're connected with your parents or a guardian or someone that you know is pretty good with their money, talk to them. Maybe you can walk through a little bit of your finances if you're in that a trusting relationship there. But also, yes, absolutely, as you said, Therese, reaching out to an advisor if you have the means to get one because it could save you so much money in the long run. So, most definitely there. And for our listeners that do not want to just stop hearing your amazing wisdom that you've shared throughout this episode, how can our listeners connect with you?
They can connect through my website, which is wealthcoachforwomen.net. I also have a gift that I'm offering to your audience that's a financial planning toolkit that has a lot of goodies in there that I think they will find helpful. One of them is my super simple budgeting plan. And as I mentioned, near the top of the call, talking about getting an awareness of where your money is going, this very simple tool will help you do that. One thing that drives me crazy when I look at things like this, it's like they always have to make them so complicated. I made a decision that life is not that complicated, money's not that complicated. This tool is so simple, you could be in the fourth grade and figure out how to use it.
Oh, I love that there. Oh my goodness. I think that so true. The amount of financial resources I've seen that I cannot figure out. And I'm like, I've been managing my own money for a while now. Why can't I figure this out? So thank you so much for sharing that with everyone. And thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and sharing your wealth of wisdom about wealth.
Well, thanks, Sophie. I'm thrilled to be here. I love your message, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. And, for me, it's always been about simplicity. Your message is very simple. I think mine is as well. So I felt that there was a synergy. And money isn't complicated. We just make things complicated. So my mission has been to try to make it simple.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, Therese. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. You too, Sophie.
That brings us to the end of another empowering episode on Claim Your Potential, the Empowerment Podcast. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed our show and want to learn more about the work we do, you can visit our website, claimyourpotential.org. There, you can access our tools and workbooks, sign up for workshops, join our mentorship program, listen to previous and future episodes, donate to support our cause, and find out how you can get involved. For even more inspiring content, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Claim Potential, where we share inspiration, educational resources, episode and program announcements, and other content designed to help you reach your full potential. Your support means the world to us, and a free way to support our show is by leaving a rating and review on the podcast streaming platform of your choice. Your feedback helps us grow and reach even more people with our empowering message. If you're unsure of how to do this, head over to our website's Leave a Review page for step-by-step instructions. Thank you to each and every one of you for being a part of this empowering community. Tune in next time as we continue our journey of learning and discover even more ways to claim your potential. Until then, remember that you have the power to create the life you desire. Keep striving and keep growing.